Hello, everyone, and welcome to SCORE Fairfield County's live webinar on Solutions for Drowning in Data. I'm Bob Hogan, the webinar coordinator today and a business mentor here at SCORE Fairfield County. I'm going to be your host, and our presenter is Bud Freund. More on Bud in just a minute, but first some brief information on SCORE. SCORE is a nonprofit national partner of the SBA, and locally here in SCORE Fairfield County, we have over 130 volunteers with a wide range of industry process and subject matter expertise. We offer three primary value-added services to small business owners. First of all, we offer free one-on-one counseling that you can receive by video, telephone, or email, and you can access that by using the yellow bit.ly link that you see on the screen, or you can go to our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org, and click on the Request a Mentor link. We also offer a wide range of educational workshops and webinars like the one today, about 150 throughout the year. And lastly, we have extensive resources on our website, including access to subject matter experts. Our next live webinar will be next Monday, April the 19th at 6 p.m. And the topic is Basic Excel Skills 2. And Bud Freund will also be the presenter for that webinar. Again, you can find specifics on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. When you're on our website, you'll also be able to access a large number of archived webinars, and you can access those on demand at any time on a wide range of business topics. Just some logistics about today. We've set aside time for Q&A at the end of the presentation, but you can submit questions at any time using the chat feature that you can access at the bottom of your screen. You just hover on the bottom of your screen and click on the chat window, and you can type your question in there, and Bud will answer them at the end. We will end at sharply at 1 o'clock today to respect your time. This session is being recorded, and the link to the recording will be available on our website within the next couple of days. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. Bud Freund has been self-employed for 40 years, and he has been providing IT solutions to homes and small businesses for over 20 years. He currently teaches technology life skills at King and manages the Bicultural Hebrew Academy Network. As a certified SCORE mentor, he regularly presents technology webinars and workshops throughout Fairfield County. Bud, it's all yours.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you all for joining us. There's a lot of information to cover today, and that's the list of things that I'm going to be talking about. As Bob mentioned, please type questions in and see if you can stump the professor. I want to start with just a general thought, because we do hold a lot of data that we get from other people that we work with, our own information. And as time has gone on, there are rules of engagement. There are now liabilities to this data that we hold. And there are rules on how to use the data, how to store it, back it up, safeguard it with passwords. And in some cases, there is now a need to destroy it. At the federal level, Sarbanes-Oxley, Gramm-Leach-Bliley, and HIPAA are all laws that are addressing the use of personally identifiable information, PII, and you can see some examples of what PII actually is. And as you start to think about these, and before I go much farther, I'm going to talk about the New York Shield Law on the next screen. Think about what data it is that you need, and is it safe to retain that data when you are done doing business with those people? You may want to either delete it from your computer or get it off of your computer. The quantity of stuff we're gathering now is it's overwhelming, and understand you're not alone. And nobody really understood all of this data that we were about to get deluged with. And I'll show you an example. This is the sign-up screen from Office XP, which came out in 2001. And I put a big circle around the only required information that you had to give to Microsoft was to tell them what country you are purchasing Office XP from. After that, you didn't have to give them anything. This is the other screen that I find absolutely fascinating. And if you read what's in that circle, would you like to give Microsoft your email address? Now, think about the last time you went to get a piece of software and the quantity of information you had to provide before you could get the software that you wanted. So even Microsoft had no idea of the amount of information that was being gathered, because if they had, they would have been linked in. They wouldn't have had to buy it. Now, if you're following the papers, you know that Microsoft 365 Exchange server has been hacked because of a software plug. Small businesses, generally speaking, are considered to be safe. If your business is running a Microsoft Exchange server, please be sure you've done your patches. Otherwise, as a small business, buying the service from other people, it's a whole different deal. You're in safe shape there. As an overall, what do you do with all this information that we're getting? My three magic words: simplify, safeguard, and invest. And we'll cover all of them, I promise. First of all, where do you keep your stuff? And more importantly than where do you keep it, who's got the keys to it? Are you the only person who can access this massive amount of data? Are there employees who can get into it? Would you know if there was something missing or taken? So do an inventory of where you keep your stuff and who has access to it. Very important to know that. We're sharing lots of data with lots of people. So, as I said before, we've got storage. Some of it is local on the computers and the thumb drives and the CDs and the hard drives that we have in our homes or our offices, and some of it's online. Now, as I mentioned, with the New York Shield Law, Stop Hacks and Improve Electronic Data Security, acronyms are great. The New York Shield Law, what's important to understand about it is that if you are doing business with people who live in New York, you are obligated to uphold the rules of that law, which among the components is the fact that if you are done doing business, you have to be able to prove to a New York resident, if they request it, that you have deleted their data. I don't want you to hold my information anymore. You have to be able to prove that to somebody who lives in New York. So where does your data live? Is it only on local computers? Is it also online? As I said before, who can get to it? And when you start to deal with employees, the question of who owns this information becomes very important. I know people who work for large companies. They have accumulated the contacts that they've created, but as an employee of a company, do those contacts belong to the employee or the employer? Email as well. People's lives are all based in email, and the ownership of that information now becomes very important. Do you own your data, or does the company you work for own it? And then in terms of responsibility, think about the fact that the more you can store, the more you can lose. And backups. I'm a very big believer in the 3-2-1-1 backup, which is to put your data in 3 different places, 2 different media, one of them off-site and one of them offline. 3 different media would be the computer that you're putting the data onto. it would be a thumb drive that you copy it to, and it would be an online service like a Datto or a Mozy or a Carbonite that would be a third place. Two different media, as I said, thumb drive, hard drive, CD, Carbonite, Mozy, Datto. One of them off-site. You could keep one drive at your home and another one at your office. You can do things online as a backup. And one of them offline, which is where most people do not do all of the work. Offline means that once you've copied the data to an external drive of some sort, you unplug it and disconnect it from your network so that it is not accessible in the event of a hack. Now, in talking about online services, and as you can see, there's a number of choices to them, you can get both paid and free online access. In my opinion, and I'll say that again, in my opinion, if you are not paying for online service, you are not getting an online backup. You are merely getting online access. You can get to your spreadsheet from your phone, your tablet, your laptop, your desktop. But if you pay for OneDrive, if you pay for Microsoft 365 at $100 a year, you get backup and you get a degree of protection. Otherwise, all you get in OneDrive is the ability to access stuff from a bunch of different places. So let's talk about email for a while, because as you can see, there's lots of acronyms again. Popmail is an old style. You get your email sent to whatever server in the sky service is providing you with mail. You ask for the mail, it comes down to your computer, and you're done. IMAP started to allow for a single point in the sky with multiple devices accessing that single point, allowing you to send a reply from your phone and be able to read it on your tablet as well. So IMAP made things a lot more versatile. Then you get to, and I strongly recommend it, Microsoft Hosted Exchange. And despite their problems, and there's a lot of people at Microsoft, they'll plug up the holes. Hosted Exchange is a great email service. It is backup, it is your contacts, it is your calendar. And in the event that you have a problem on a computer, a tablet, or a smartphone, you can reconnect to your Hosted Exchange account, and everything comes back as if it had never been a problem. IMAP, Gmail is IMAP. It does work. Don't get me wrong. These products have been tested, they work. What happens when there's a problem in Gmail is that if you can't find the answer on the Google search engine, you're on your own unless you pay for G Suite. Now, Outlook, and I'll talk a little more about that in just a moment. Outlook is an investment in your email. And as I've said, if email is the lifeblood of your business, I strongly urge you to invest in it. As a database, and we'll talk about this in a moment, well, Outlook has database characteristics that can help you to simplify your emailing. Also with email, unsubscribe from mobile devices. I'm a big fan of Apple devices. They keep a pretty clean sandbox. The reason I recommend unsubscribing from mobile devices as opposed to your computer is because if there is a problem, there's less probability, I'll say it again, less probability of a hack or corruption on your mobile device, particularly your Apple mobile device, than your Windows computer. Also, that notion of having an email address that you can give away so that all the junk mail stays out of your primary email address will only help to streamline the number of emails you get. In doing selecting and cleanup in email, if you hold the shift key as you click, you will select a block of emails. If you've got 20 emails in a row, you click number 1, you hold the shift key, you click number 20, and everything in that block will be selected and can be deleted. If you want to cherry pick, you click your first email, hold your control key, and then you can get number 3, and then number 12, and number 18, and number 20, and then you can delete just those selected items. Now, I know I wrote that subject line. I know I wrote it to somebody, but I've got 3 people in a company, and I can't remember who I sent it to. As I said, in Outlook, it's got database functionality, and the search capability is really, really good. So you could type in Hassenpfaffler into the search engine of Outlook, and it will tell you who you wrote it to. It's a really great feature of Outlook. It allows you to have fewer folders. In my case, I tried to streamline this past year, and if you look under PC, I have streamlined down to those 5 topics. Now, in order to get them alphabetized correctly, there's a few cheats that are very important. Those little squiggly lines are called tildes. It is the key to the left of the number 1. And in the world of Windows, the tilde is the top of the list. It's higher than number 1, it's higher than letter A. So if you want something called score to be at the very top of your list, put a tilde. It will kick above anything with the letter A. If you've got other things that you're trying to fool, you may need to use 2 tildes. And that's how you can fool your list so that you can get those names that are important and you access regularly closer to the top of your email list. To kick them down to the bottom, as you can see, I use a letter Z with an underscore and whatever the name of the folder is. Now, if you're on the Macintosh side of the world, you need the plus sign to kick those folders up to the top and to the bottom of the list. So plus sign in the world of Mac, tilde in the world of PC. Also, if you go into rules in Windows, you can start to force feed your folders so that as stuff is coming in, if I wanted all of my score emails to be landing in my score folder, I could create a rule that says, if it comes from score.org, push it into the score folder, or put it into the _biz folder, or wherever I want it to go. In Gmail, rules are known as filters, but they will do the same sort of thing. But as I'm showing you at the bottom, please remember, if you're going to be pushing fresh email into other folders, you got to check those other folders, because that phone's going to ring and Bob's going to say to me, did you get my email? And if I didn't check my score folder, I would have to say, no, I didn't. Could you send it again? And then it turns out that I didn't get the second one because I didn't look in the score folder. So there are we've heard of 6 degrees of separation between people, and it is really true in email as well. When you get to that 6th degree, you're never quite sure if it's the good guy or the bad guy who's all the way down that food chain. So I urge you to proceed cautiously. A couple of quick email examples. Some of you may have seen these before, but That's a really bad button because there's no Microsoft logo there. It wasn't sent from a Microsoft official account. And if I clicked on that button, I would have me a really big problem. This is my favorite of all time. I know for a fact that Federal Express does not need to use support@dentistelmhurstny.com for their email because they've got FedEx.com. So proceed cautiously. Another proceed cautiously, which will help to minimize your emails. Rather than hitting reply all, which sends out everybody's email to everybody else, which then gets added to spam lists and sends more email, please use the BCC. Everybody will get the information, but if you hit reply all, only one person is going to get the reply. BCC keeps people safe. This was another item that happened to me very recently, last week, 2 weeks ago, something of the sort. So I got this email from Aster Services, who I have no idea of who they are or where they're from, or until I did some homework, I didn't really know what they did. But there was no person in the to list, which is a tip-off that I got something from someone I don't know, and I'm not sure what's going on. But I can tell you this much, if I went into that shared document to take a look on that click here, I would have a really big problem. Read your email before you click on it. And by the way, in this case, I did call Aster Services and told them that there had been a hack and they might want to take a look, see at what was going on. For those of you who remember Sergeant Phil Esterhaus from Hill Street Blues, those attachments can be really, really dangerous. Hover over them, be cautious. This is another place where there's problems coming up. I get notifications if I make a purchase at Amazon, so I can check my Amazon account to see if I actually bought a 55-inch smart screen television, which I hadn't. And the numbers between the 833 and the 866 don't match. I don't know where 833 is. I did some homework and it's basically an area code to nowhere. So this went into the circular file. Read your stuff before you click and do, folks, please. Did I mention this, by the way? There's another place where we're all getting a little bit confused, and I've had this happen with multiple people. Did you get my email? Well, I know I wrote it. I'm sure I wrote it, and I was expecting an answer from you, but I had 27,000 windows open on my computer, and I thought I wrote it, but the phone rang, and then I answered that, and then I went and got a cup of tea, and then I came back, and I started on a spreadsheet, and what do you know? Somewhere buried way down below all those windows that are open is the email that I never sent. Please. Keep fewer apps open. Your machine will run more efficiently if you do, and you will be able to keep track of stuff a whole lot better. Also, I am a very big believer in plain backgrounds. I'm a dark gray fan myself. That way I can see my icons on my desktop. I know what's going on, because that as a background on a desktop isn't going to work. You're going to lose files in that. However, you may find that as a screensaver, it's pretty, but I don't think it's going to help your efficiency on your desktop. So, want to get some quick vocabulary. If you've ever been to a computer security workshop or webinar, people who deal in computer security are always talking about attack planes and threat actors. So I want to explain those things to you just so you have a really clear idea. That is an A-10 Warthog. It is an attack plane. It has a 50 caliber cannon in its nostril there. This is a very dangerous machine, okay? And that is a threat actor. And I wanted to get this computer vocabulary clear because the next thing I want to talk about isn't so much folder hierarchy as an org chart for your stuff, okay? And just think of it as an org chart. It's not hierarchy. We don't need the big words. We need to find our things. So if you are, let's talk about an external hard drive, and you've got that drive, or if it's on your computer, that folder. So you'd start by creating one folder if it's a business. I don't recommend personal stuff in the business world. And if your business and you are one and the same, try to separate them, as you can see, and try to create really simple folders so that the structure is easy to find. And as I mentioned earlier, because there are now liabilities to the quantity of data that you store, if you can start to offload things, burn them to CDs, put them on thumb drives, whatever it is, get them off your computer so that they are out of the confusion and the mix, and they are also out of risk. Now, many people are still using paper. I would suggest to you that if you scan them into PDF files, you could put them on a gizmo that small, and now you would be able, by the title of your files or folders, to be able to search that information out a whole lot faster than you're going to find a sheet of paper in that room. So Windows will give you 82 characters for a file name. But if you're going to abbreviate, be consistent in the abbreviations. And again, remember the secret formula of tildes and plus signs so that you can get things higher up into your folder lists. Also, if you do a right mouse click on a particular file or folder and hit copy, go to your desktop, do a right mouse click, you can paste a shortcut to that file. Don't move the file. Keep the file organized so that you can find everything for the Alpha Tree service in the same place. If you start scattering your files on the desktop, but it's not in the folder, you're going to run into a problem. I'd mentioned the 3211 backup earlier. One other thing to safeguard your life is two-factor authentication, or it's also known as multi-factor authentication or two-step authentication. That's where banking in particular, you log into your bank's website, People's, Wells Fargo, Chase, ABC Bank, whatever it is. And if you have set up two-factor authentication, they are going to send a code to your phone, and you are going to have to put in that second code before they're going to let you into your website so that you can access your financial or whatever other data. So if that hasn't gotten you all crazy, let's talk about this on social media and Section 230, which says that websites like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram are platforms, and they are not liable for the information that is posted on them. And these are time vampires. So you can post whatever you want up there, and you can spend your time arguing with whoever disagrees. I'm not sure it's going to help you get your work done. And understand that we are investing huge amounts of time in these places. My friend Freund from LinkedIn says I'm pretty good at networking. And to this day, I don't know if he's talking about plugging computers in with wires or if he's talking about having conversations in a room. So this is a time vampire. Proceed cautiously here. Now, if my math is correct, there are approximately 20 million minutes per year, and there are 38 cable news channels that you can have at over that time. Nobody can absorb that much information. And latest things I've read on websites, there's 1.5 billion websites, but they're not even talking about database-driven websites. They're just talking about websites that are static. So the number of websites, it's infinite. Plenty of stuff out there for you to not get your work done. However, I am a big believer in keeping up with news, and I do get my notifications. And in this case, as you can see, if the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and the Washington Post are telling me that California is shutting down, it's a pretty safe bet that California is shutting down. Conversely, if Apple, Facebook, YouTube, Google, and the federal government are all telling me that InfoWars may not be a place to get information, it's a pretty safe bet that may not be a place to get your information. If you're not a Stanford resident, this nuance would not be particularly important or significant to you. The date, make note of that. Photograph of the Pitney Bowes corporate headquarters. Mr. Whitaker was doing a very important service, letting people know that Pitney Bowes had been hacked, just to be sure. However, unfortunately, almost 1 year earlier, Pitney Bowes had moved out of that building and it had turned into a public school. So even the people who are providing the news, it's changing faster than our headlights. Just bear it in mind. Now, if you've never heard of the retargeting pixel, that's the reason that those red sneakers are following you all over the internet. You looked at them on one website, and this little piece of software, text, data, call it whatever you want, retargeting pixel, it's now going to follow you to all of the websites you go to, and ads for those sneakers are going to just keep following you forever. I want to offer some thoughts on how to make that go away. That bit.ly is an article written by Jeff Fowler. Put simply, he writes it, I read it. It will explain to you how to go into Facebook and turn off the Facebook tracking. If you go to myactivity.google.com, you can turn off the tracking that Google does. They are going to call it pause. Pause it. I urge you to pause it. Otherwise, Google will track you and whatever you do forever. And that sad computer, don't worry, Google's got a couple of billion other people that they can watch. You can turn off your activity, you can turn off your YouTube searches, you can turn off all of the information that Google would then be able to sell to marketers. The next place to turn things off is aboutads.info. And if you go to the control tab, you will get to the Web Choices tool, which will allow you to turn off the pop-up windows from 134 legitimate internet advertisers. And yes, this is being recorded, so you'll be able to reference back to it. Now, in the world of software, and we're all using software and we're finding out about the latest and greatest piece, and quite frankly, every time they change Photoshop, it makes my head explode because I got to relearn something I thought I knew all too well. So, as it says, at some point, that new software will impede your productivity, and it's going to be good enough until they tell you you can't do the work that way anymore. For instance, QuickBooks. If you want to bank online, you are married to updating, I think it's every 2 years. Here's one suggestion I hope you will take advantage of, and this is a very recent addition for people using mobile devices. If you search out Microsoft Office, they have combined into a single app, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. In other words, you used to have 3 separate apps. They took up a huge amount of space on your phone, your iPhone, your Android phone. Now you can delete, and I've done this. I've deleted Word, Excel, PowerPoint. I now have just Microsoft Office. I can access all 3. I am a huge advocate of Microsoft 365, so I can edit my documents as well as view them. It's a great piece of software and it's a huge efficiency. So I tried to chop things into categories because we're all dealing with software. And if you've got a particular business niche, there's going to be off-the-shelf software. I know of people, certainly in the medical field, there is software for pretty much any discipline in medicine. You can get software off the shelf if you're an electrician or a plumber. You can buy it already built. You could take the time to build it yourself, but you may not be a software developer. So the time that you spend creating the software could be spent doing the work you do. Or FileMaker Pro is a database umbrella, a catch basin. And there are people in the FileMaker world who specialize in making custom software. So 3 different ways to find the software to run your business. Those productivity suites, whether it's Microsoft Office or Open Office, or the suite that comes with your Mac, I believe it's Numbers, Pages, and Keynote. Those are going to be those day-to-day things that you have to do to get presentations, letters, and spreadsheets done. If you're in the financial end of things, I'm a big fan of QuickBooks, although I hear that there's a program, I think it's called Wallets, that will allow you to do financial work, but I'm not sure that your accountant is going to talk to Wallets as quickly as he will talk to QuickBooks. So the efficiency that you may find may not pay off when you have to move that information onto your accountant. Obviously, in communications, email, I use Slack with a number of people, although there are some who love it. There are some who don't understand why to use it. It's a personal preference. If you do note-taking, the Microsoft world has OneNote, and it's part of the Microsoft 365 suite. And again, you can start the note on your phone. You can finish the note on your desktop computer. I am a huge fan of Evernote. I pay an annual fee for it. It's how I create presentation ideas while I'm in the car waiting for my wife to get off a train or whatever. I come home, I take my idea out of Evernote, I put it into PowerPoint, I move my data around. And then we've talked about the online storage and access, and I will repeat, if you are paying for software, you are getting backup. If you are not, you are just getting online access. Another quote to keep in mind as we get close to the end of this massive amount of information that we're all having to deal with. Anyone who's ever done a presentation knows that the three parts are tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you told them. So we're all living with too much data. We all need to simplify it. There are strategies that will be better for some than for others. You must safeguard your software. Hacks are a costly problem for businesses now. Passwords, two-step authentication, please. Invest in software to make your life easy. It will pay off because you will not have to struggle through software. You can work at what you do. And in particular, I urge you to invest in email. I urge you to invest in backup. As I mentioned with the New York Shield law, and you will see more and more of this going on, you will need to be deleting and be able to prove that you have deleted data from people you have done business with. The floating around of information, you may not want to hold on to that credit card information any longer. There are liabilities to you. And again, who has the keys to your kingdom? With all of this stuff, are you going to miss that really important piece of paper or that one file? We have come to the time to stump the professor. So, Bob, anything that I can answer for anyone?
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Budley. A lot of information there, as Budley indicated. We're going to use the rest of our time here for questions. Just as a reminder, if you want to ask a question, please hover on the bottom of your screen and click on the chat icon, and you can type your question in, and we'll take as many as we can up until the top of the hour. And just to start, Budley, you were talking about the New York Shield law, and we do have a question from NG on that. How can you prove to a New Yorker that you've deleted their information, and how long do you need to be able to prove that for? You know, one year, 10 years, 100 years? And isn't there a security risk keeping backup in the cloud? So a few questions
that's
there.
multiple part. I may hit you up for the multiple part. So
yeah, that's
how do
okay.
you prove that you've done a deletion? Well, you can take a screenshot of deleting the file. You can write a document that says your information has been deleted and sign it, and you now have a legal document that you can be held to. Quite frankly, as somebody who deals in technology, I'm kind of hard pressed to give you a better answer than that. And I've struggled with it, and I've know a couple of people who have bigger propellers on their beanie than I do. How do you prove to somebody you've deleted their data? Well, you send them a letter that says, I've deleted your data. If he didn't trust you to do business, he won't trust your letter either. But at some point in time, business is about trust. And if you don't trust people, then even if you tell them that you did something, they're going to call you on it. And as we know, we are a very litigious society. I think the other part, Bob, was about storing in the cloud.
Yeah, the question really was around security. Isn't there a security risk keeping your backup in the cloud? So
well, yes and no. As I said, if you are paying for a backup service, for instance, Datto, Mozy, Carbonite, and I'll add one other name and I'll give you the reason in just a moment, Box. These are companies that are basing their reputations on the safe storage of your information. Datto, in my opinion, is the Tiffany of backup services. They literally put a box in your office. It connects to either your network or a single computer. There's a piece of software that pulls off of the server. Let's call it a server for lack of a better name. I'm thinking of one client in particular I have. The server backs up to the Datto box. The Datto box then pushes to Datto Online. Datto Online has multiple buckets, and the bucket that's receiving information then pushes to bucket number 2 or bucket number 3, which is literally disconnected from the rest of the Datto network, so it is not accessible. That's the offline backup. I have rescued people out of Dropbox because they paid for Dropbox. And I haven't rescued anyone out of OneDrive. OneDrive has an auto backup system, or an auto save system that saves multiple versions of your file. The other one, Box. Box prides themselves, and if you read their information, they are HIPAA compliant, and the rules for storing healthcare information are incredibly stringent. I'll add one other name into that Safe Storage Online. It's a product called ShareSync, and it's from a company called Intermedia. And they also claim to be backing up email, folders, files. If you deal in text in their world, your texts, in compliance with Gramm-Leach-Bliley, Sarbanes-Oxley, and HIPAA. So there are companies that are doing the safe online storage, but it's not free. And I will tell you that the investment is fairly pricey, but they do it.
Okay. Billy, while we're on that topic, could you just maybe get a distinction between using, say, a service like Datto or Carbonite versus just having your information in the cloud on, say, OneDrive or in G Suite? Is there a difference as long as you're, like you say, paying for OneDrive, or would you suggest that people have the redundancy as well?
In my opinion, the best redundancy that you can do is to have a hard drive in your hand that you plug by wire into whichever primary computer you've got, and on some timely fashion, you do a backup. I'm blanking right now on the built into Windows 10 is a backup product. And I'm sorry, I'm forgetting. I think it's called File History. I'm pretty sure it's File History. So Windows has File History, and Apple has Time Machine. And if you plug in a hard drive to your Windows 10 computer, you turn on File History, you do your backup, and you unplug that drive, you have, in my opinion, the best backup that you can get. If you are on the Apple side of the world and you use Time Machine, again, you plug it in periodically, you do your backup, and when you're done with the backup, you unplug it. And if you're good, and if you have a corruption, a hack, an attack, a data loss, or whatever, the only loss is going to be for that time in between the last time you did that offline backup and whatever day you had your problem.
Okay. That's great. You touched on a little bit of this at the beginning, and here's the question would be around, we have a lot of people out there, and I'm likely one of them, but have a lot of, just get flooded with email, and have trouble keeping up with it. Do you have any tips or suggestions in kind of how to prioritize that? Not only just store it or categorize it, but how to prioritize it when people are kind of overwhelmed sometimes with email?
Well, rules are a really good method of filtering all of the advertisements, whether you shop at Talbot's or Stop and Shop or Whole Foods. They're going to keep sending you emails and there may be a reason to look. But if you create a folder called marketing material or junk mail or whatever you want to call it, and you just set a rule that says everything that's coming from Talbot's, everything coming from Stop and Shop, I don't need this every day. It's going to just clutter up. I just want this to go into that other folder and I'll look at it later. I get a lot of news stuff. So I created a news folder, and I've got rules that are pushing all these news emails into my news folder. And at the end of the day, as I did in the example, if the Times, Post, and Journal have all told me that California is closed, I can select all three and delete them. I just don't need to read them. So rules are one way to go about it. If you take the time, and it may seem like, quote unquote, a lot of work to do, but in the long run, I think it will pay off. If you've got advertising that's coming from Eddie Bauer, and you just don't need it in your inbox anymore, you can go to the Eddie Bauer website. You can change the email address that Eddie Bauer uses, and you can then have all that email going somewhere else, and it will stay out of your inbox. So those would be my suggestions on prioritizing.
What just related, just a follow up. What about on unsubscribing from a lot of this stuff? Is that pretty reliable when you go to these sites to unsubscribe?
Depending upon the reputability of the people that you're getting the email from, absolutely. And with that said, as I mentioned earlier, I recommend doing the unsubscribing from mobile devices. And the reason is because the potential for corruption, hack, garbage, whatever, is less than on that computer that is really important for you to be getting your business done.
Okay, just as a reminder, we do have a few more minutes left, so if you have a question, please type it into the chat feature, and we'll try and take as many as we can. But there's one here just on the, you quickly went over the retargeting pixel. Maybe you could go back to that slide and just talk a little bit more about how to manage those red sneaker ads.
Okay. Sorry, folks, it's going to get a little blurry for a moment. Okay. So the retargeting pixel is a tiny piece of software. Let me start in a different place. If you get a web page, every now and then you'll see an empty space that says words along the lines of put ad here. And that's space that can be bought by any advertiser to put an ad in. And if you were looking at cars, I was looking at SUVs, and whoever I was looking at managed to drop a cookie, a retargeting pixel cookie, onto my computer that said, anytime there's an empty space, throw my SUV ad in there. So in order to turn that off, and the big culprits are obviously Facebook and Google, you can turn off your Facebook activity. This article will tell you where to go looking inside of the Facebook settings. The other place, as I mentioned, is to turn it off at myactivity.google.com, which will allow you to turn off the tracking of what websites you go to, what ads you look at, what YouTubes you look at. And there's a bunch of places to turn it off. Just toggle through all of the stuff and turn it off, make it gray. Gray means they're not following you. And then the other place you can go is to aboutads.info. Go to the control tab. Oh, and by the way, that little blue triangle in the top left corner of their webpage, if you see that in advertisements as you go along the internet, those are companies that are part of this consortium that are trying to do the right thing. You tell me you don't want my ads, okay, there's somebody else I'll send it to. So that triangle I, that's people involved in ad choices and about ads. So you go to aboutads.info, go to the web choices tool, and then you'll be able to turn off the advertising from 134 different advertisers, and you'll see fewer pop-ups.
Awesome. We do have a follow-up on this topic from NG. Can't we just block the ads with add-ons to browsers like Firefox?
Yes and no. What happens with if you block by add-ons is that some websites are going to say, oh, you've got an ad blocker going on. Well, you can't come in until you turn that off. So it's a double-edged sword.
Okay, that's great. Well, I think that's all, unless anyone has any last questions. That looks like the all the questions that we have today. So just as a reminder, the session has been recorded, as Bud said, and you can just go and watch the recording, which will be available via our website in the next couple of days. And then you'll be able to stop on any page that you want and get those nice links that Budley put up. And our next live webinar is Monday, April the 19th. This time at 6 p.m. And the topic is Basic Excel Skills 2. And Bud will be the presenter. Again, if you want to take advantage of individual counseling, you can use the yellow bit.ly link on the screen, or you can go to our website and click on the Request a Mentor button. So again, we'd also appreciate it if you could fill out your evaluations for today's webinar. They are of great help to us going forward. And on behalf of SCORE, thanks everyone for attending our live webinar today, and a special thank you to Bud Freund for presenting. So stay well, everyone, and have a great day.
Thanks for listening, folks. Stay healthy.